Wisp Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Welcome to Season 1, Episode 2 of the WeCOACH Podcast on Wisp Sports.
When I go against up, I just get most up. Oh, 'cause everything is not enough.
Please join us every 2 weeks as we sit down with some of the best and brightest women coaches, leaders, and industry experts in the world of sports for fun and inspiring conversations. I'll be your host, Kahn, Executive Director of WeCOACH. This podcast is a co-production of Wisp Sports and WeCOACH. WeCOACH has become the premier nonprofit organization committed to recruiting, retaining, and advancing women in the coaching profession of all sports and all levels. Through programming, resources, and an engaged community, we are changing the landscape for female coaches and the next generation of women who dream of following in their footsteps. Today's guest is one who many young girls dream of playing for, Notre Dame women's basketball head coach Muffet McGraw. Fans of last year's NCAA women's basketball Final Four watched as not one, but two buzzer-beating shots sealed the fate for Notre Dame on their way to hoisting the championship trophy. Muffet is a 2017 Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame inductee, has made an impressive 8 trips to the Final Four, 6 of those to the championship game, and coming out with 2 national championships this past spring as well as 2001. 17 players have gone on to WNBA careers while she's garnered multiple National Conference Coach of the Year honors. Let's get on with the show. Coach, thanks for being here. I'm so pleased and privileged to welcome you as today's guest.
Thanks, Megan. I'm happy to be here.
Let's be honest. The past year for you has been what people dream of. Naismith Hall of Fame induction, won the NCAA National Championship, you celebrated your 41st wedding anniversary with your biggest cheerleader and husband, Matt, and I believe your son recently got married. I have to say, that is probably a lot of champagne consumed.
I don't think we're going to have another year like that one. That really was just a phenomenal year in so many ways, personally, professionally. It definitely was the best year of our lives so far.
I bet. Any thoughts of riding the train ride out on that one?
I got a couple of questions about that, but we're having so much fun. This was such a fun postseason. We really enjoyed sharing the trophy with a lot of people. We took it all around. We were at Chicago Cubs, Chicago White Sox. We went to the ESPYs. We just did so many things here in the community to get out and thank our fans for a phenomenal season.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, how do you enjoy the off season, which it sounds like you did, and the hype that went with that? I mean, you have the attention of Kobe and Ellen DeGeneres and really the national spotlight, and then bring us back to now and trying to refocus your team.
Well, and I don't know if it's a problem with me personally or female coaches, but we don't celebrate things enough. We don't celebrate the good things. And I think throughout my career, we've won, I think, 6 or 7 straight league championships. We had the tournament championships, and we never really celebrated them because you always ended your season on a loss. And so this year, ending on a win made it just so much fun to be able to finally just acknowledge that we had a great year. Even though other years we've had great years. Getting to the Final Four is a tremendous accomplishment. But to get over the hump and win it, I think we really took the time to enjoy every moment of it. Wherever we went, we had a great time. We enjoyed celebrating with our players and just taking them around the country and letting everyone enjoy the moment. Arike had a lot of big moments, and she definitely was leading the media polls. But everybody was so happy for her, and that's a great thing about team and our team chemistry was that everybody on our squad was just so happy for Arike. We were all glued to the TV for Dancing with the Stars and watching her and acknowledging. I mean, she had the big basket, but we know there was the other 39 minutes of that game where other people contributed to.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I love hearing you talk about women celebrating, and we don't do it enough because it's so true. It's like we work so hard and we grind so hard, and then we barely give ourselves the grace to enjoy that. So I love hearing you say that. And now you got the kids back on campus. When this goes live, you're going to be tipping off your 2018-19 season the following night. So how do you refocus? How do you get back that blue collar mentality?
Well, and that was kind of one of my worries going into the season, thinking, we finally were so busy celebrating, and we kept saying just a little more before we get to next year. And I said, when the first practice comes, that's going to be the turning point. We're going to turn the page, and we're going to look ahead to next year. And it's been good. I think the team is really focused. They are doing a great job at practice. We have so many new players. We got Brianna Turner back, which is a huge advantage for us. We've got Michaela Vaughn back. We've got 4 new freshmen. So really half of our team has not been a national champion yet. So I think it's been good to have some new faces in the gym as well as the veterans to really show the way. There's a little bit of a gap, I think, between the veterans and the freshmen. It takes a while for them to come along. And of course, freshmen, they want it to be perfect right away. So that's been a little bit of a learning curve that we're dealing with right now.
So, celebrating, was that something that you think you learned along the way in your journey? So was this year's championship sweeter than 01, 17 years later? Is that a lesson you've learned in your career?
Yeah, it took me a long time to learn it, though. We've had so many successful seasons, and, you win the regular season, you win the championship of your league, and then you're like, well, we still have the NCAA, so let's not get too high about that. Let's try to keep an even keel. And I look at around, and I look at even in the men's side and on the women's side of other people, what did they do to enjoy as they were going along? And it seemed like we were the only ones that really weren't enjoying it and celebrating it as much as we could have. So I did learn that lesson, but certainly when you win it all, you really can't look back and say, if only we would have done this, So we could have played a little better, but we came out with the win.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 big ones. What else have you changed? I mean, you've obviously sustained success for so many years. You've never had a losing season. What are some of the other lessons you've learned along the way or changed your philosophy as the game has grown and as student athletes have changed, or as we've changed, how the media has changed the coaching landscape?
I think it's important as leaders to look around you and look at your team. Look at, for us, it's this millennial generation now, but kids have changed throughout the years. I think you have to continually reinvent yourself. I think leadership has changed tremendously since I started coaching. When I came out to Indiana, to Notre Dame, and Bobby Knight was the big influential person in the state, and he was a phenomenal coach. He did things by the book, and he did them with a lot of discipline. And I think that's how it used to be in coaching. This is what we're doing. Go do it. Don't ask questions. Don't wonder why. And as kids changed, and really for me, it was watching my son. My son growing up, I'm watching him play. I'm watching the interaction with the coaches. He's coming out of the game. I'm looking and going, how are they treating him? What are they saying to him? What's going on? And I realized that's what my parents are doing. And that's what is important to them. They're looking at that interaction when they come out of the game. So for me, going from a very autocratic, very, very disciplined, very much I was in control, to now I'm a collaborative leader. I listen a lot more. I want more input. I want the players to have a voice. And so we talk a lot more about, hey, here's the scouting report. We're working on the 2-3. We're working on the 1-3-1, maybe a little different things defensively and guarding the ball screen. And I asked them, what did you think? And so giving them that voice and that chance to say what they think and to know that I'm listening to them, I think first it builds confidence. And secondly, for me, I think it improves the relationship that I have with my players. And I think that's so important for women to find their voice and to have the confidence to speak so that when they leave here, and I listen to what they're saying in the WNBA about player salaries and about the way they're treated in the league. And I think I'm just so proud of them for having the confidence to come out and use their voice to help them, but really to help the league, to help women's basketball, to help the game. And certainly they're going to go off and go into business and do a lot of other things. And I want them to be confident women.
Absolutely. I mean, I love hearing you say that. And you talk about being an autocratic coach. And I would just say, from an outsider's perspective and a huge basketball fan, I've worked in women's basketball my whole life, done it with such class and integrity and resilience. This is really really, I think you're a role model for so many people. And I just love everything you're saying about leadership and how you connected with kids and what's important now. So I have to ask though, with your former players, do they come back and are they like, who is this coach?
Yes. We have that discussion all the time. I just had one just a week ago. She came back and she was like, seriously? They don't have to run for that? I mean, we had to run for everything. And now it's really, well, what do you think you could have done differently? How, if you had that situation again, what other options would there be? And they were astounded that there was so much back and forth, I think. But I think you always remember it a little tougher than it really was because the players before her would come back and say, I've really changed. So yeah, it's been an evolution. And I think so important you look in the mirror though, and you have someone you trust to tell you that you need to change. And, you know, your players aren't going to tell you that. So hopefully everybody has somebody. It doesn't have to be a mentor, just somebody even on your staff. I mean, I don't want to be surrounded by people that are going to constantly agree with me. You need to have that back and forth. When you leave the room, you need to be on the same page. But while you're in that meeting room, you need to hear other ideas and really take the time to listen to them.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about your staff for a second. So you're one of only 11 all-female coaching staffs in the Power Five. First of all, amazing. Thank you for championing women and continuing to help women stay and advance in the game. Former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, I'm sure you've heard this quote, once said, there's a special place in hell for women who don't help each other out. So talk to our listeners, share with us, one, why you've made this such a priority and how you've continued to build out your staff over the years.
Well, I think women need to empower women. That is so important. And that quote by Madeleine Albright is so true because I think that we can be our own worst enemies sometimes. I don't think that we're going to be able to change the world in terms of the chauvinism and the sexism and all the things that women are treated differently. There is a double standard. How are we going to change that when we continually look to men to be the one to save us? And we can't do that. We've got to know this is women's basketball. We need more women coaches. We need to get our young players out and get them involved. And how can we do that with work-life balance? We need to fix the legislation so that we have more work-life balance. We've done that in women's basketball by having a couple of shutdown periods, but we need to do more. We need to do more to really just empower women and to know for us being the only female head coach and the all-female staff in the Final Four. But as you said, just 11 in the Power Five. That's really hard to believe. When you look on the men's side, it's 100%. So why aren't we at 80%? Why do we continually look and hire when there's so many really qualified women? And I would say that one of the reasons is we are not confident enough to apply for the jobs. I think women, we wait to be asked, and we really need to apply for that job because I think we're very loyal. We want to stay where we are. We don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. But in terms of going out and tooting your own horn, women aren't good at that. We don't do that enough. So we're going to sit back. We're going to watch men get hired. We're going to complain about it, but we're not going to be the one to apply for the job. And so the women who are head coaches really need to look a little harder. You might not get a resume from somebody, but you can pick up the phone and find someone. And that is so true for diversity. We need more African American women. We just need a lot more diversity on our staffs. And you have to, when you're out recruiting, look around and get a short list, and you can't just wait and see who applies. You really have to be proactive, especially when hiring women.
Yeah, and I think, and you alluded to this with the loyalty piece, I think sometimes if we are a female or when our female head coaches are sitting in that chair, they want to hang on to those good women. They sometimes have a tough time wanting them to grow and encourage them to go seek, those head coaching roles for themselves. So sometimes we get in our comfort zone and we want to hang on to those folks.
We do. And I feel like my job is to get more head coaches out of my staff. I've got a few around, but that is my job as the leader of my staff. I've got to get them ready and prepare them. And how am I doing that at practice? How much am I giving them to do? How much responsibility? How many times are they addressing the team? How many decisions are they making? Well, we've got to prepare them for the next level, just like we're preparing our players for the next level.
Absolutely, which you have done a phenomenal job of preparing your players for the next level. I mean, I think we look around and we see Notre Dame sprinkled quite a few places, so very impressive. Let's talk about how you continually reinvent yourself. So you alluded to it generally, but I want to know how do you continually reinvent yourself? How do you grow? Like you're continually growing your staff, which you just talked about. How do you grow?
Well, and it's not easy to change. I'm from Philly. Sarcasm is our native language, and sometimes it can be kind of biting. So I've become a Midwesterner. Now I've been out here a long time, and I love it because the people are just they're a little bit nicer, and I've really had to sort of slow down and think about what is the perception of what I'm doing. And I do. I like to read. I like to read positive stuff. I like to read other books on leadership. I like to read about other coaches and things they do, and how it's all about the relationship now. And women are good at that. Women are good at relationships. So I think for us it should be easier. But like I said, you have to have that person who can look at you and say, I was at practice today, and your tone of voice really wasn't good. So we film practice, and if I can hear my voice, that's going to help me change it. I think about when a kid comes out of the game and they see my face, how is that going to look? What are their parents thinking because I've seen my face sometimes when they come out of the game. And I've met them at half court sometimes during a timeout. So, I mean, I think you have to watch and really look at those things and say, man, I can't do that anymore. And it's not going to be overnight. I think it's a gradual change. And the toughest thing about change sometimes is getting other people to see that you did it, because they already got that preconceived idea of how you're going to be. So, I mean, you have to work really, really hard, and you need somebody to kind of, help you along, whether it's somebody on your staff or somebody you trust, to just watch you and say, these are some things you need to do, and talk to your players as they graduate. You have those meetings. You have the end of the year meetings. What could I do better? I never used to ask that question. What do you need from me? What can I do, to help you more? And it's amazing, when you stop to ask, the answers that you get.
Yeah, for sure. So for you, is that person somebody on your staff? Is it your husband? Who's that trusted confidant?
Yeah, my husband's he's good at that. He's a super positive guy, and I'll come home and be like, worst practice ever, and he's like, really? Because I was there, and I thought there was a lot of good stuff. Maybe it's you, maybe it's the way you're looking at things, and you got to find the positives. So he definitely helps me. My staff helps me. I think we're all pretty competitive, but I think there's times when they can say, I really thought this was pretty good, and I think, again, talking to the players, like, what did you guys think? How did things go today? And knowing that I know I'm never satisfied. That's one of the things that probably has helped me succeed, and it's hurt me at times. So trying to really back up and again, like, celebrate the little things, baby steps. But you know what? We're making progress.
Yeah, absolutely. So who are some of those female mentors for you? We talk about empowering other women. Who have been some of the female mentors and influencers in your career and or personally?
It's hard because I'm of the age where when I started, there really weren't very many women at all in our game. And so I always was looking to some men. Jim Foster, who coached at St. Joe's where I played, he helped me tremendously when I was starting my career. I think watching Pat Summitt, I don't think she was always somebody that would take the time and help you out if you needed anything. But even watching her from afar, reading after every game, I read everybody's comments, whether it's men's or women. I'm reading somebody coming off a big loss. Like, what are they saying in the paper? These are the kind of things that are so important to your team, because they feel like, there's all negative. And how are you getting to the positive after a loss, especially? But I mean, Pat Summitt was such an icon in our game. Jody Conrad, Marcia Sharp. These are women that they were just so important for the growth of the women's game. And to watch the class and the way they handle themselves, especially in defeat, was something that I really wanted to emulate. When you watch them up close and from behind. We lost to Tennessee 20 times in a row. We're 0-20, and we finally beat them, and Pat could not have been more gracious. And my first thought was, I never would have been that gracious. And then my second thought was, maybe you need to change. So, I think you can learn. I always tell people, everybody you meet has something to teach you. It might not always be the way to do it. It may be the way not to do it, but you can learn from really everybody you meet.
Yeah, I love that. And Pat, she really was such a champion for the game and a champion for women. She's surely missed. Let's talk about your son. Recently got married, but I'm going to jog your memory here. Take us back to what it was like balancing coaching and motherhood.
It's unfortunately a problem that women we really have this to ourselves. I think men are taking a more active role, and it's been great to see, companies now have paternity leaves, and there's things that they're doing to help the guys just spend more time with their families. But I still think it's the women who feel guilty. You feel guilty when you go to the office. You feel guilty when you're home not going to the office. So it's hard to strike that balance. I was fortunate because my husband was a tremendous partner. You have to have a great partner. It's a lot of teamwork at home. He was able to switch jobs so that he could be there for Murph. He could be there to pick him up after school. When I was traveling, he was always the one that was just really taking over. He was packing lunches and doing so many things around the house. And that is what made it easier for me. But mentally, there's always that struggle. I'm missing this. I'm missing a game. I'm missing the opportunity to see him do some different things. And I think the good thing was I'm raising a child that now doesn't believe they are the center of the universe, which I think is a little bit of a problem today, because I think every kid feels special and they're the only one, and there's just, the apple of the parent's eye, and the sun rises and sets on them. So I thought it was good that he knew that, there's other things that are important in life, and you're important, but we're not going to run our lives completely around you. And the second thing was he has tremendous respect for women. And that I love. I know he's a great husband because of the way his dad showed him the way. And, it's really annoying in this whole Me Too era when men are saying, like, parents are saying, I worry about my son, and I worry. If you teach men and boys to respect women, if they grow up learning how to respect women, they are never going to have that problem. And I am raising a feminist. He is a feminist. He knows that it's important for women to have opportunity. And I think we're going to be a much better society when this generation takes over.
Absolutely. And he grew up with 14 sisters, and that changed. So how many sisters does he now have as you went through team after team? So I bet he was a pretty lucky guy.
He did.
So you've sat in living rooms all over the country convincing young women and their parents to come to South Bend. Outside of the talent, obviously we know talent wins games. But what were the traits that were the defining separators for you when you were identifying kids and saying, I want that kid?
There's so many things that we look for that have nothing to do with talent. Everybody will look at is good. I mean, they're all, probably the best player in their state. So the things that I look for is first leadership. I want leaders on my team. So I watch them play. They're always the best player on their high school team. How are they interacting with their teammates? How are they when their teammate misses a shot? Maybe they give them a good pass and the girl misses a shot. How are they when the ref makes a bad call? How are they when the coach yells at them? I'm looking at everything. I'm looking for red flags. I'm looking for people that are encouraging their teammates. Somebody that's trying to make everybody else better. Somebody that's competitive and wants to win. Not somebody that's complaining, whining about calls, or the coach should have done this or that. I want somebody that is really unselfish, that is a great team player and leader, and somebody that competes on every possession. I don't want to know if you're up 20 or down 20. You should be playing the same way every single minute. You can't teach people to work hard. If you have a good work ethic, you're going to be successful. If you have a positive attitude, you're going to be successful. But for us, unselfish is probably the biggest key. People, they get so hung up on how many points they score. I don't care how many points they score. I just want to win. That's the bottom line. What are you going to do to help the team win? I look at the relationship with their parents, because I think that's how they're going to treat me, the same way they treat their parents. So we're looking when they're on campus to just see, I go to their homes, and are they the ones sitting there going like, yo, mom, like I need something to drink? Or are they cleaning up and are they the ones getting the dishes and taking them out? It's really interesting, because then I have the girls over to the house, my team, and I'm like, well, who's helping with the dishes? Like this, this is a team here. So, trying to teach those lessons, because I tell them all the values the parents are instilling, they're the same ones that we want to keep on teaching.
Absolutely. And I bet you're watching those, how those parents react and act too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not recruiting the parents, and sometimes they make a lot of the phone calls, and especially when someone drops us. I think that's so important that parents really make their girls make that phone call, make that tough phone call. You get down to probably 5 official visits, sometimes less. There's only a couple people that you have to call and tell them that you've made a decision, you're going somewhere else. That is part of the process. It's part of the education. And we are educators. We are educators more than coaches. And, that's a lesson they really need to learn.
It's funny you said that. I just took myself back many years ago, and that was probably the first time these young women are having to have a difficult conversation. So it is a big learning lesson.
It really is. It's the first big decision they have to make in their lives. And, the parents have to guide them to it and then let them make the decision. But, there's always consequences. And so they need to be able to be mature and make that call.
So when you reflect back on your career, and I hope you have a long runway left on that sideline still, be out there for a while longer. What's the most rewarding? What do you look back on and find the most rewarding?
I think the most rewarding thing for me as a coach is to see that moment, to share that moment with a player who has blossomed and has reached their potential. It may be one play in a game, it may be an entire game, but it's a moment when they acknowledge to themselves, like, yes, I belong here. Yes, I can do it. Yes, I've accomplished everything I set out to do. I really have made it. And to see them walk a little bit taller, maybe even have a little bit of a swagger, which women are not anxious to do, but just have that moment when, man, you did it. You did what we thought you could do when we brought you here, and now you know. And so they just kind of blossom. But anytime I can see joy reflected on one of my players' faces, and we had a lot of opportunity to see that this year, but I never get tired of watching the reactions of the team and see their face, that smile, that jumping up and down into each other's arms, the celebration. And those are the moments that I really treasure.
I'll say from a fan perspective, Final Fours, how many Final Fours have you been there to recently? And you look up in the stands and you see all of your former players, all those people. I mean, they're diehard. They adore you and your staff and what that represents. And I think that's also, a testament to you and the culture you built, and for them to really feel like family.
I love when the alums come back, and I'm sitting in my office right now staring at a picture that was taken after the championship game, and there's about 40 of them in the picture on the court after the game, and just celebrating for them. I mean, they weren't thinking, oh, darn, I wish it was me. They were thinking, we did it, because they know they built it. They got us to this point. They've all had a piece of it. They've all contributed in some way. And afterwards, knowing, and they said, and the girls said, like, we want it for all of you guys. And this is our moment, and we're so glad they're here to share it with. That's so fun for me, watching them come back, and each Final Four to see the crowd out there and know that we're a family. And it doesn't matter if you graduated in 2000 or the 1990s, you're still a part of our family.
I'm smiling just listen to you talk about it and know what that looks like in the arena. So, as you know, our organization, WeCOACH, we represent coaches of all sports, and you've given so many nuggets that are takeaways for anyone in any sport, not just basketball. What advice do you have for the next generation of female coaches, regardless of sport?
Well, I think that you have to be strong, confident women in order to be role models for your team. I think you have to fight for things. There's still some gender inequities. There's still some Title IX things. And sometimes we want to wait until, after we win, then I'll be able to talk. If I win the league, or if we win X number of games or get to the tournament, then I'll be able to say something. And you have to think about what are your players thinking? If you're going to wait until you do this before you look for equality, what's that saying to them? That they don't deserve it right now? So I think it's so important. And I know I made that mistake early in my career, way back when Title IX was still kind of a dream, even though it was law, it wasn't really into practice. And so you have to look at how is your team looking at how you are reacting to some of those things. And that's hard to do. I mean, it's hard to do, especially when you're not winning.
Yeah, especially when you're not winning. And you have to have a great relationship with your sport administrator.
Yeah, you really do. That's important. And that's an important relationship. And I think sometimes we get a little guarded and, we want to keep things to ourselves and we want to keep things, don't let this get out and don't talk about this. And then suddenly the players go in their office and they have no idea what hit them. So I think it's really important. I had a great sport administrator in Jill Bodensteiner, who's now the athletic director at St. Joe's. And she was tremendous because she was at practice. She traveled with us. But even when she wasn't, she was the first call I made. If something went wrong, I let her know everything. We're really struggling right now. This one's homesick or this is going on. Keep them in the loop so that when the player comes in, they've got some background on the situation. So, and it's important to have a great relationship with your athletic director. And you've got to find time to see them because, you're not in their office very often. So, I would call my boss and say, hey, you going to football practice today? Would you mind if I tagged along? And then I just hang out with them for 2 hours. And it's just me and him. And we, can discuss things where you see him at a men's game, where you see him, at another sporting event. And you just go up and talk to him for a few minutes because we don't ever get that chance. It's always a kind of an emotional situation on game day. So nice to have that chance to do it otherwise.
Yeah. And I love, it's a two-way street. You have to take the ownership to go build that relationship. It's just not one-sided. And
right.
Sometimes our coaches don't understand, they're sitting in the office waiting for the administrator to come to them and they don't have that relationship. So it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we end every episode with some quick hitters. I'm going to rapidly fire some questions at you. We'll go through maybe half a dozen and you just come back with what first comes to mind. What's one of your favorite leadership books?
Well, I just read The Culture Code. I thought that was fabulous.
What keeps you awake at night?
Losing. For me, it's about being wrong. Like, what if I mess up? What am I going to screw up? I really worry about that all the time.
So a fear, are you a fear-based? Does that propel you?
Yes. I definitely fear of losing. I definitely am somebody that hates losing more than I like winning.
Yeah. Probably much of our profession would probably say that as well. So if we snuck up on you watching film at night, what snack might we find next to you?
It'd be chocolate. It'd be dark chocolate and probably chocolate-covered almonds.
I think you just went over the hearts of every female listening to this podcast right now. So what are your game day rituals? Or do you have superstitions?
I hide. I hide on game day. I stay home on game day. I don't want to be around anybody. I don't talk to anybody. I turn off my phone and I just kind of hibernate.
Yeah, is that just so you can focus and tune out all the noise?
Yeah, and I don't want to make anybody else nervous. So when we're on the road, I'm in and out the pregame meal pretty quickly because I don't want to make them nervous.
That's what I was just going to ask you. So do you eat pregame with your team?
Very quickly, only on road games. I don't come in on the home days.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, coaching is basically a year-round, 24/7 job. I know off days and off seasons are few and far between. How do you recharge on an off day?
I think it's so important that we do that because during the season, it's like, we're off today. Oh, I better go recruiting. I think it's really important that you turn off. I think because my generation didn't grow up with a cell phone, it's pretty easy for me to just turn that thing off. And I really try to do that. So when we have off days, when Murph was younger, I would just have Mom and Murphy days. And, it's like, it's all about you. What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Anything you want just for this day. And now, I can do it with my husband. I can do it with myself. I mean, you need to recharge your own battery. Sometimes you just need to go, go out, go shopping, go walk around, go do something you love.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said shopping. Are you an internet shopper or you got to go to a brick and mortar?
I used to like to go to the store, but when you don't have time and I had to get a dress for the wedding and I had to get some things during the season, I definitely became an online shopper.
I love it. Coach, thanks so much for being our guest and all you do for the game of women's basketball. I really hope to see you down here on the sidelines in Tampa in April.
That sounds good. I love this organization. It's all about women and what we can do to help each other. And I think we have a long ways to go in terms of what we can do to help each other.
Thanks so much. We'll be cheering for you.
Thanks.
Conversations from the world of women's sports. This is Wisp Sports Radio.
Thanks for listening to today's show with Muffet McGraw. What a phenomenal role model and advocate for women in the coaching profession. Every 2 weeks, we'll sit down with female coaches, experts, and industry leaders in the world of sports. Our podcast will feature dynamic conversations, explore coaching insights, gender equity, and share stories of courage and resilience to empower you on your coaching journey. Subscribe to Wisp Sports on your podcast player to catch all of the new shows released every 2 weeks. The show notes for this episode can be found on our WeCOACH Podcast show page at wispsports.com, where you can also find more coverage of women's sports. Follow us and share your comments on Twitter at WeCOACH and at Wisp Sports, or on Facebook at WeCOACH Sports and at Wisp Sports. Interested in learning more about WeCOACH upcoming events or how to become a member, please visit our website, wecoachsports.org. And last, join us in 2 weeks as we host Tampa Bay Sports Commission's Claire Lessinger. We'll talk about what it was like to play for legendary volleyball coach Mary Wise, taking over and rebuilding a program in her hometown of Tampa, and now her important work in the community. Until next time, all sports, one voice, WeCOACH.
That's just the way